Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shah. All praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah, Ba'ashem Rekakadash. Now, when you look at this nation that have the children of Israel in captivity, when you look at Proverbs chapter 21, verse 12, it say, "The righteous man wisely considereth the house of the wicked." And so, considering the house of the wicked, the king of Babylon, they are pretty much controlling the whole situation. Now let's go to this king of Babylon real quick and pick out a feature of this king of Babylon. And I think I'm looking for verse 16. It say, "They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee." Okay? They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, "Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms?" You see, so he say, consider the house of the wicked. Now let's go to Malachi to establish who is the wicked according to the Bible. Who is this wicked that we need to consider? What is this family? Because when the Bible say the house of the wicked, it's talking about a family, like the house of David, the house of Saul, you see, the house of Israel, the house of Jacob. It's talking about a family, a bloodline. So when you go to Malachi chapter 1 verse 4 and say, "Whereas E.D.O.M said, we are impoverished, but we will return and rebuild the desolate places. Thus says the Lord of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them," meaning the Edomites, "the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord have indignation forever." So the king of Babylon was said that people would look upon him and consider him. King Solomon wrote in Proverbs 21 verse 12 that the righteous man would look upon them and consider their wickedness. You see, consider their whole bloodline. And so that's what we're doing here in this short lesson that I got from the Spirit. So when you look at Proverbs 21:12, the verse goes on and say, "But God overthroweth the wicked for their wickedness." Okay, so what is the wickedness that this house of the wicked is displaying? Now let's let them say it out of their own mouth, like Psalms 64 said that they would do. When you go to Psalm 64 real quick, it says that the wicked will tell on themselves. Let's quote this so we can get the Spirit involved. This page is sticking on me. Psalm 64, verse 8, it says, "So they, the wicked, shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away." Now the next verse goes along with the lesson and say, "And all men shall fear and shall declare the work of God, for they shall wisely consider of his doings." And so that's going along with the Proverbs 21:12. The righteous man will wisely consider the house of the wicked, because this is also the doing of the Most High, because the wicked is the sword of the Most High. So let's get into this video. Salakia.
Every post-World War II president would be indictable.
Can we run down them real fast? What did Eisenhower do that you would indict him for?
Eisenhower overthrew the conservative nationalist government of Iran with a military coup. He overthrew the first and last democratic government in Guatemala by military coup and invasion, leading to years of, in Iran, it led to 25 years of brutal dictatorship, finally overthrown in 79. In Guatemala, it led to massive atrocities, which are still continuing. That's after almost 50 years. In Indonesia, this wasn't known until recently, but he conducted the major clandestine terror operation of the post-war period up until Cuba and Nicaragua in an effort to break up Indonesia, strip off the outer islands where most of the resources are, and undermine what was then considered as a threat of Indonesian democracy. Indonesia was too free and open. It was allowing a political party of the poor to participate. They were gaining a lot of ground, so that Eisenhower supported and helped instigate a military rebellion in the outer islands. This is just for starters. These are all indictable offenses.
What about Kennedy?
Kennedy was one of the worst. Kennedy, first of all, invaded South Vietnam. During the Eisenhower administration, they had blocked the political settlement in 1954 and instituted a kind of a Latin American style terror state, which had killed maybe 60 or 70,000 people by the end of the Eisenhower period, and had instigated a response, a reaction. Kennedy recognized that it couldn't be controlled internally, so he simply invaded. In 1962, about a third of the bombing missions that were carried out by the U.S. Air Force in U.S. planes with South Vietnamese insignia, but U.S. pilot. He authorized napalm. He began the use of chemical weapons to destroy food crops. They began programs which drove millions of people into what amounted to concentration camps. Now that's aggression. In the case of Cuba, it was just a massive campaign of international terrorism, which almost led to the destruction of the world, led to the missile crisis. And we can continue. Again, these are all indictable offenses. Well, Johnson expanded the war in Indochina to the point where it ended up probably leaving 3 or 4 million people dead. He invaded the Dominican Republic to block what looked like a potential democratic revolution there, supported the Israeli occupation in its early stages. Again, we can go around the world. Take say Carter.
I'll get there, but Nixon's next.
Nixon, we don't even have to talk about. We can skip that one, okay? But
Ford.
Well, Ford was only there for a short time, but long enough to endorse the Indonesian invasion of East Timor, which became about as close to genocide as anything in the modern period. They pretended to oppose it, but secretly supported, in fact, not so secretly, the U.S. Immediately after the invasion, the U.S. did join the rest of the world in formally condemning it at the Security Council. But Ambassador Moynihan was kind enough to explain to us, in his words, that his instructions were to render the United Nations utterly ineffective in any actions it might take to counter the Indonesian invasion. And he says proudly that he did this with considerable success. His next sentence says, in the next few months, months, it seems that about 60,000 people were killed. And then he goes off to the next topic. That few months went on to probably hundreds of thousands. Formally, the U.S. Announced a boycott of weapons, but secretly increased the supply of weapons, including counterinsurgency equipment, so that the Indonesians could consummate the invasion. That's just a short period in office, but that's indictable. Syria, that's a major war crime. Carter increased, as the Indonesian atrocities were increasing. They peaked in 1978. Carter's flow of weapons to Indonesia increased when Congress